Well, among the many losses that resulted from our government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic has been in education, where students at all levels have suffered. While we frequently hear of how this has affected younger students in elementary school, it has also had an effect on our nation's colleges and universities. According to the State Higher Education Executive Officers Association, private colleges have been closing at a rate of about 2 per month in recent years as they cope with the steep declines in enrollment. A lot of this the effects of the pandemic. What happens to the students left in limbo when this occurs, and what does the future look like? Joining me now to discuss this is Meg Kilgannon, Senior Fellow for Education Studies at the Family Research Council. She worked in the Department of Education in the Trump administration. Meg, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
I think overall this is a case study in the unintended consequences of government policy decisions. We've seen emerging data that has shown how children have suffered in elementary school and even in high schools because of these closures. But now we see universities and colleges actually closing. What's going on?
Yes, it's a combination of factors, and one of the tipping points was the closure during COVID. There is a declining population of students. You know, we're sort of in a baby bust in the United States. We have been for many years, and the demographics are changing. And so we have more colleges than we need, but also we have fewer students to fill those roles. But the turn to online learning during the COVID shutdown has really it's been hard for some colleges to make the transition back. And so universities closed. The example in this article was talking about the University of Arts in Pennsylvania. That's a place where students go to learn musical skills, right? They're going to learn how to write music, how to perform music, how to sing in groups, how to play music in groups. And you can do some of that online, right? But the learning environment there is very much dependent on being together in person to communicate musically with people. And so this is a school that's going to be closed now because their enrollment has declined to such a degree. Another factor is the reform of the federal student aid form that made that form difficult to fill out, and that's causing closures as well.
You look at the cost of education rising. You had during COVID, as we talked about, might be part of the silver lining we've talked about before, where parents became more involved in what their children were learning because they were learning online and at home. But also this transition to where many colleges that have been successful in this transition have expanded their online learning capabilities, which are much cheaper for students as the price of education continues to go up. I mean, is this a major shifting of the educational landscape in America?
I think it is. We're just going to see colleges close. We have more colleges than we need. There are more institutions of higher learning than there are students to go to those institutions. And so there's just a market contraction here that we see in any other industry. And it's going to, we have very personal feelings about colleges and universities. I love my alma mater. I'm sure you do too. So we see these closures happening, it's very sad. But it is just the state of play right now, unfortunately.
So several factors, as you've brought out, involved in the population, declining population. We could talk about our move away from the sanctity of human life as being a part of this. But certainly the government's approach to COVID-19, I mean, there's lessons to be learned here. And I just wonder, Meg, how many years in the future are we still going to be discovering the effects of what happened during that 3-year period?
It's a good question, and we shouldn't forget that many colleges and universities forced their students to be vaccinated. And that was a population that experienced significant side effects from the vaccine and were not at great risk from COVID. So there's so many reasons why this is happening right now. And it's important for government to not overreach in times of crisis. We need support in times of crisis, but there were certainly policies that were put into place by government officials that were really draconian, and now we are still feeling the effects of that overreach.
Meg, I want to go back to something else. The financial aid that many students have to get in order to be able to go to college. Now, it's because the cost is so high. Could this bring about a market adjustment in terms of the cost of education as more students turn away from brick and mortar education to online?
I think that we've been long overdue for a recalibration of educational expenses in higher education. When I was in college, we won't say how many years ago, but it's quite a few. It was basically cost $40,000 for 4 years of education at a pretty exclusive university. Now, $40,000 won't buy you 1 year of education at a mediocre university. So this is just not sustainable, this trend. And the student loans have been a contributor to that, the fact that they're
Right.
guaranteed student loans by the government that have caused this increase. And there's going to be a reckoning.
For every action, there's a reaction. And again, when we look at the government's response to COVID, I believe we're going to be probably, I don't know how many years down the road, we're still going to be uncovering the consequences of those decisions. Meg Kilgannon, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tony.